there was some travelers. And they didn't have a lot. And they came to a town, and they asked for someone, "You have anything extra that we could eat?" And everybody said, "Oh no, we just have enough for ourselves." And so the travelers said, "Okay, well, we got this soup pot. We'll just make some soup." And so they get their pot, and they build a fire in the middle of the town, and they get some water, and they put it in their pot, and they put a stone in it. And they say, "We're going to make stone soup." And so somebody comes by and goes, "What are you making there?" "We're making stone soup. But you know, you could really use a carrot. Do you happen to have an extra carrot?" "Well, yeah, actually I do. Here you go. Here, have a carrot." So they put a carrot in. And then another person goes by, "What do you got there?" "Oh, we're making soup, stone soup. But you know, I could really use some seasonings. Do you have a few seasonings we could throw in here?" "Oh, sure. Yeah, here you go." And you all know what happens to the story. One by one, people come by. They throw in a potato. Oh, whatever. They throw in all the stuff, whatever they want to put in their soup. And it becomes a big, amazing soup. And of course, they don't eat the stone. But the whole community comes together, and there's enough for everyone, including the travelers who there was nothing for. And so today, in our midst of our series on the season of nonviolence and peace, the attributes that we're talking about are compassion and community. And today's talk title comes from a quote by Mother Teresa. And she said, "If there is no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to one another, or we belong to each other." And that's what that story is about, right? Is remembering that we belong to one another. And we find so many ways to show that we are separate, different, that one is better or less than another. But all of those things, those are choices or where we were born. Those are outer garments that we wear to signal that we belong in this group or another. They're not who we really are. There was this great ad by the Ad Council that came out, I think last year, maybe the year before. And it shows this big screen, and it's like in a town square. It's a big screen, and there's skeletons on it. And you see them dancing together, or playing, or hugging, or maybe sharing a kiss. And then the people, the skeletons, peek around the corner. And they're every different mix-up of religion, of skin color, of gender, ability. And what I love about that, the theme is love is love. What I love about that is the same as what we talk about in the stone soup story, is that when we take away the outside stuff, we all look pretty much the same. Now, sure, your people who've gone to med school may be able to look at our skeletons and be able to figure out, oh, well, that's this, maybe figure out some stuff. But for the most part, we're all really the same when we get down to it. It doesn't matter. And I would say that our essence, what makes us who we are, that divine spark, is the same. Just like our skeletons are pretty much the same. We all have the same core needs for shelter and food and things like that. And we also have the needs to be loved and understood and cared for. And I also believe that we were all born with the same spiritual potential. But there's this whole avalanche of things that can happen that get in the way of our realizing this potential. Some of us were born with more advantages than others. Some of us have never known the true pain of hunger or the strain of wondering if their family will have a safe place to sleep. But we teach that we live in an unlimited universe and that abundance is our birthright, right? At least that's what I teach. And that a change in consciousness is what is required to bring about more. Now, I believe this, but I also think that it's not quite as straightforward as that. Because you can't just tell someone who's scrambling for scraps in a slum to think positive. That is not very compassionate. And that is where some of the not misplaced criticism of many prosperity teachings come from. Because some prosperity teachings say, well, if you get in a problem, you were thinking wrong. So you should just think differently. Here's the thing. If you've never had any opportunity, any examples of what anything other than the situation you are in looks like, how would you know? It's really hard when all you're doing is surviving. And that's why we have to remember that we belong to one another. That the most compassionate thing is likely the best answer. That's why we collect food for our local charities. We don't say, oh, you should have a prosperity consciousness. We say, let's help out. That's because when a person has food, they're able to think more, grow more, and actually have a chance. That's why this month we're collecting for Awake, because it's much easier to focus on rebuilding your life if your basic needs are being met. The compassionate thing is how can we help now? Ask yourself, if I was remembering that we are all the same family, what's mine to do? We can't fix, change every single person. Most of us don't have the resources to fix all the world's problems. But we can do a little bit, and a little bit matters. We can do our bit. And it's not always easy. But we can help with things like meeting basic needs. We can do something in our consciousness as well. Because we can help dissolve the walls that we have built between ourselves and those we think that are different. So here's the test. Because where does your mind go when you see a sticker on someone's car that says they voted for someone you don't like? Do you maybe have a moment, a not so quite Christ-like moment? I know I've had those moments. Or maybe you see someone in a store wearing a shirt that glorifies something that you find distasteful or even harmful. Now, if you can step beyond the recoil and remember that whoever it is that you're like all of a sudden like, I don't like them, they're a skeleton, just like you. And they have a divine spark, just like you. And they have the same basic needs of love and belonging and shelter, just like you. And they have had different life experiences, and they have brought them to different conclusions than yours. Right? We can see things. I grew up here, you grew up here. We come to different conclusions about things. It's just how it is. And sometimes it's really, 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 really hard. But when I find myself in these situations, I'll tell you, that bumper sticker one, man, whew. I try to remember that for every choice is coming from love or fear. And it seems like there are a lot of goings on in the world that are a fear response. This is not a new thing. If you look at history, going, I wonder what motivated that. You can come back down to fear, usually. Fear of what and who is different. Fear that there won't be enough. That's a big one. I've got to hold on to my stuff because there won't be enough. But that runs counter to our prosperity. If we know that and we live in an abundant universe, we don't need to worry about that, right? The more I share, the more there is to share. There's also fear that who I am will be challenged. That's a scary one for a lot of people. If somebody different than me is allowed to be, what does that mean about me? Well, it shouldn't have to mean anything about you. Either your faith is, and knowing who you are is good and solid, or maybe you need to think about it some and figure that out. But the thing is, yes, you can't completely get away with fear. Fear is good for things like making sure you don't stand too close to an unstable cliff. That's what fear is supposed to be for. Fear is supposed to tell you to not get too close to the tiger. That's what fear is for. It's not very helpful in dealing with our fellow humans, unfortunately. So this is where we take our spiritual warrior hats and put them on. We get to choose to respond with love, not fear. It's hard. Do it anyway. We know we live in an abundant universe, which means there's enough for everyone. There's enough for everyone. There's enough for everyone. So we don't need to be afraid of someone taking what's ours, because there's enough for everyone. Just like in our stone soup story. We all just throw something in the pot. It's going to be okay. And we all know that everyone is on their path. And while we can shine a light and give some suggestions, we can't make anybody get where we want them to be any faster than they want to go wherever they want to go. So, yeah, it's, let it be. This, of course, falls into the mind your own business category. Wouldn't that be great if we could all just remember to mind our own business a little bit more? I postulate that if somehow everyone in the world can know these two things, that there's enough and mind your own business, most of the problems and strife in our world would cease. It covers a lot of stuff. I thought about this before I said it. I did. If we didn't have to fight over things and places and stuff because there was enough. And if we could let it be okay for people to be different, man, that would fix a lot of problems. So it starts with us, with our spiritual warrior hat on, right? And it starts with us saying, okay, we're going to choose, even if we can't make anybody else choose differently, we can choose differently. We can choose to respond with love. We can choose to remember that we are all community. We are all the same family. We all are skeletons with stuff on. We have different stuff. We all have the same divine spark. Some of us use it more effectively than others. It's not a judgment. We express it differently. But as Mother Teresa said, we belong to each other. So let's put what we can in the soup pot. And remember to always respond with love.